Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Let me take this opportunity to officially introduce myself. Some of you I had the opportunity to meet, and conversely, some of you I have not. So, as you see, my name's Theodore Sampieri. I am the ESOL coordinator here at Brookhaven National Laboratory. I'm honored to be here today. And I'd also like to say a special thanks and welcome to my friends, colleagues, and also to this year's 2015 summer students, many of which are in attendance today. I would be remiss if I did not mention that I've had the wonderful opportunity to interact, socialize, and communicate with many of the summer students. Several of them have been kind enough to share their plans, their research, and their future goals, which I was very impressed and motivated. So hence, today's lecture and talk is going to be about guidance for the summer students, scientists, and basically everyone else in order to improve public speaking skills, and more specifically, designing and giving a good research presentation. So let's proceed. All right. Famous individual on the board. And he had a great quotation which sinks in and resonates with most people. And it indicates, he says, all great speakers were bad speakers at first. And it's a very challenging task, but most people, especially 90% of postdocs, are required to present their research at one time or another. So please keep this in mind as we're proceeding. Next, I'm going to ask for a couple volunteers here, for scientists, summer students, and others. Let me see some hands. Why do we need to present our research? Okay, let me see some volunteers, please, from the audience. Why do we need to present? One more time, Aaron. Communicate with the public. Okay, one, to communicate with the public about your research. Somebody else. Two, thank you.
Get funding.
To get funding, okay? Major obstacle. All right, we have a couple here. As Aaron was saying, communicating your data. Very important, critical aspect of research. Second component, to make an impact on our field. If you're a scientist, you want your research, your discoveries to be noteworthy. Conferences, funding, and performance. Moving along. Reflection. In order to get feedback from colleagues, audience, mentors, and other postdocs, how am I doing? Please tell me what I did correct. Where am I misguided? And then you reflect ultimately to benefit your performance. Meet future collaborators at conferences, different events, and ultimately to obtain a job. Okay, let's proceed. Interesting statistic. 90% of all postdocs are going to be required to present their work. By a show of hands, how many people have conducted presentations regarding their research here at the laboratory? Let me see, a little higher. It's almost about half to 75% of you, which kind of correlates with the statistic. Okay. How to control presentation anxiety. Most of us experience it, and it's a very common event. So I'm just going to ask quickly if we could just pass some of these around with that. Okay. If you don't mind, that would be great. Thank you. Let me give you some more. If you don't mind, pass some of them around. If you take a look, coming around right now is just a little literature regarding presentation anxiety and how to control it. And thank you for the assistance passing out the papers. Okay, moving forward. If everyone has a copy, that would be great. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph, and just please read along. It says, feeling anxious at the thought of public speaking is perfectly normal. It's a normal body reaction. It says you respond the same way you would to any stressful situation. Your body produces extra adrenaline. This is what makes your heart beat faster, your hands shake, and your knees feel weak. However, the good news is you can learn to control your nervousness and make it work for you instead of against you. Look down to the segment A. It says many speakers have negative thoughts before speaking in front of an audience. They tell themselves things like, quote, I know the audience won't like me. I know I'm going to look silly. With practice, you can learn to control the negative thoughts so they don't control you. Everyone take a minute, and if you could please write down, think of 5 fears that cause presentation anxiety or stage fright. All right, just take a minute. If you could jot down 3 to 5, and I'm going to ask for some volunteers from the audience. And you look at the examples they provide. I'll forget what I'm going to say. I'm afraid no one is interested in my topic, or my English isn't very good. And many people struggle with that dilemma. So just take a second and go through it. Think about your fears from the moment you come up here and everyone's looking at you and you're looking at them. All right, if I could please see some hands from someone in the back. Fang, did I see your hand? Help us out, please.
I think the most fear to me is we never talk, you kind of fear that people may not understand what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The one is about English, the speech of English.
For those who you couldn't hear, Fang indicated people couldn't understand him, maybe due to his English, okay, which is a very common. Takahito, help us out. Something else.
Okay, so sometimes my fear is to teach. It's also my fear of sometimes my fear of some scientific topics. So sometimes audience is not interested in my talk. Yeah, as this sentence says. Yeah, but sometimes I have that situation. Yeah.
Okay, if you couldn't hear him, sometimes the audience is not interested in your topic. You see people instantaneously falling asleep. Or the old famous looking at the phone, everyone's head is down. Everyone has to check an email. No, they're not interested. Somebody else, thank you.
Well, personally, one would be not being able to answer a question from the audience.
Very tough.
Even possibly stumbling over thoughts or words, not being able to get your ideas together unless you have it written down in front of you.
It's very hard. You can prepare, you could have your notes, but when you come up here, likewise, I used to do, you fall apart. Everything just dissolves, and it's very upsetting. Sergey, help us out. Another fear.
Sometimes I fear that I will lose my mind, and I will be able to smoothly transform from one point to another.
When you're focusing on one topic, and then it's hard to make that transition going to different topics without losing your train of thought and your continuity. It's very difficult. Anyone else? Thank you.
Talking too fast.
Talking too fast, especially if you're from New York. Okay? I remember living down south, and I would say 2 sentences, and they say, whoa, 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 you need to slow down. So we're going to talk about that momentarily, but for talking too fast, most experts submit taking a deep breath prior to your sentence, trying to relax, slow down your pace, slow down your heart rate, and then ultimately everything should be a little slower. Very good comment. Anyone else? Oh, 1 and 2. Yes, thank you.
The guy in the room that knows more about what you're told.
It's very intimidating being a young scientist in the career, and you're doing your best to project your thoughts, your research, and you have an individual in the back who has more years experience, knowledge, and it can be intimidating, very much so. And last one.
The dreaded syndrome. When you say drones everywhere, does it feel like?
And that's exactly what they call it, verbal fill-ins. Okay, like, you know. And it proceeds, and the speaker doesn't even know he or she is doing it. If you look down to the bottom for 3, and this is one technique to help all of us, it says, when you have fear, substitute at least 2 positive thoughts for each negative thought you personally identified. So, for example, your fear is the audience is too large. There's 50, 100 people in here. The solution they indicate is think positive thoughts. 1, the size of the group does not matter because people are listening one at a time. So this is a technique to help people, and on your own, you could fill them in and think about fears you have and a way to substitute them. Okay, if we please turn to the back, and you have a picture of 2 individuals, one standing and then the other sitting. So it says tips for confidence. For posture. Number 1, it says keep your head erect. Keep your head straight. Having your head down, tilted to the side, back too much, is not a good personal projection when you're speaking. It says 2, keep both feet flat on the floor and slightly apart. I've seen speakers do this. I've seen this, that. It's almost like they're stretching or doing yoga during a talk. And then it says 3, keep your back straight, your shoulders back. And then more importantly, with the lectern, some people go back. I've seen others hug it like this. And as the author indicates here, just gently, straight, rest on it. And then you look down to the bottom. And this is more of maybe a one-on-one or possibly an interview situation, or if you're talking to a colleague or a group leader. It says, tips while sitting and listening to one person. You should sit straight while leaning forward slightly to show interest. Second, rest your hands lightly on your lap in the arm of the chair. And then third, which is optional, man or female, keeping your feet crossed slightly at the ankles. If you look down to B at the bottom, this is one of my favorite quotes. It says walking when conducting a presentation. It says a famous Spanish matador, Manolo Vasquez, once said, quote, the most important lesson in courage is physical. It's not mental. I was taught to walk in a way that produces courage. The mental part comes later. If you want to appear and feel confident when you walk to the room, the front of the room, walk the walk of the matador. All right? And again, that's omitting confidence. So let's proceed back. It says how to control presentation anxiety. Many can relate to this. Why are scientific talks bad, boring, or dull? Somebody else from the audience, someone I have not heard from, please. Help us out. Why are scientific talks? With the beard. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Anxiety from the speaker. Sergey, thank you.
Because very often speakers dig into details, and it's very hard to follow to the main idea of the presentation.
It's very...
After a couple of 3 minutes, it's became very hard to understand what they really want to say.
Usually the first 3 minutes, the audience is going to decide. I'm going to listen to this individual. He's interesting, he's informative, he's enlightening. Or within 3 minutes, everyone pulls out their iPad and you just see a light glow from the audience. And that's an indication of this. People immediately say, I'm not interested. When is this going to end? Who's next? Second, the speaker lacks strong public speaking skills. It's one of the most important skills one needs to master in life, yet it's not taught in academia as much as it should be, especially in the scientific community. Third, the speaker is unable to distill the importance of the data. They can't have that connection with the audience due to the lack of public speaking skills. And last, the speaker is unable to individualize the research for his target audience. UCLA researchers have indicated the following. They say, our credibility, and if you, 93% of our actual words that people absorb, are interested in, don't come from what they're saying, but it comes from body language, nonverbal communication. Only 7% of our credibility comes from actual words that are spoken. All right, I'm just going to ask for just a little participation, just distributing these. And if we have another packet, if several could help out, that would be great. Okay, maybe one, and maybe two. Okay. So passing around is good to see you. So, as the papers are going around, you see in the cartoon, the speaker is saying, looking and acting confident really works. They're actually paying attention to me. She seems in shock that the audience is listening. William Shakespeare wrote that all speakers give two speeches at the same time, the one that is heard and the one that is seen. Believe it or not, most people are frequently influenced more by what they see than what they hear. And there you have the statistics regarding that. And then it says at the bottom about body language, vocal characteristics, plan, prepare, and present. Okay. Flip to the back, as you see with the couple of characters. Using body language effectively. It says body language means posture, eye contact, facial expressions, and gestures. Using body language as well as your speech patterns reflects how you feel about yourself. It also affects how others react to you. It can project confidence or it can project that you're very uncertain about yourself. With eye contact, it's very easy for the speaker just to focus on the several people who are paying attention, while the other people are looking at their phones and their iPads. But a good speaker does not just focus on the people who are paying attention. They'll walk the room, owning the space, and they will make direct eye contact with the people who are looking at their phones. And that's saying, I'm speaking. You should be listening to me. And it's very hard, and it takes a lot of confidence to make that eye contact. It's a lot easier just to look at the people who you're comfortable with. But again, a good speaker, you look at any good public speaker worldwide, almost 30, 30, and 30. And they look at everyone in the room, not neglecting anyone. Okay. Look down, analyzing the posture at the activity. It says, look at the body language of the following people. From the four, who looks the most confident? Someone yell it out. Yes, it is Cheryl, okay? It is Cheryl. A, it says, what is it about Cheryl that causes her to project courage and confidence? Let me see some hands from the audience, please. Thank you. Help us out.
Facial expression.
Number one, her facial expression. Two,
Open posture. Facing the audience looks just wide open.
She has an open posture. She's facing the audience. I remember in undergrad, I had a professor for a year, I never saw her face. It was this the whole time. And she talked to the board. I couldn't even get a question in. She never even looked at the class. So Cheryl was doing that. That is correct. Let's go down to, is there anything else about Cheryl? Open posture, facial expression, the stance, and also her attire, her clothing. Look down to B. What could Diane do to look more confident? Number one, she could face the audience. That may help. Right? Anything else that she can do? She could smile. She could smile. I remember when I first started teaching, and I shared this story with several of my students. The professor in grad school used to watch us and sit in the back of the room and assess. And after class, we would talk, and he'd tell me what I did right and what I did wrong. And I remember one of the kids made a joke, and being a young professional, I was trying to maintain my professional demeanor, and I kind of turned and I was laughing. And the professor said to me, Ted, you have to laugh. You have to let the audience know that you're a regular human. You like laughing. You like to socialize. So after those several meetings with the professor, it changed my perception on how to teach and how to interact with people. Moving down to C. What's wrong with Carl's posture and appearance? Someone from the audience. He's not confident. But let's take it one step further. What in his body language indicates that he lacks confidence?
He looks like he's crying.
No, number one, he looks like he's crying. He looks very sad. What else? He's holding his hands. Does anyone know what they call that terminology? Ringing. I'm sorry, say again? Ringing. Ringing? Oh, yeah, it's ringing. They also call it a self-touch gesture. And you see many people do that, fiddling with their tie, their glasses, their hair, their belt, a necklace. And they do it subconsciously. Or you have hands in the pockets playing with change, like that. And again, that's distracting to the audience. And the speaker doesn't even know he or she is doing it. And finally, D. What's wrong with Simon's body language? Someone I haven't heard from, please. You had your hand up before. He's crossing his arms almost as if he's nervous or cold. Okay? Anything else with Simon? He's not looking at the audience, and his whole facial expression is negative. So even by looking at those 4 characters, next time when you're giving a speech, preparing, practicing with your friends or family, try to look back in this and then look in the mirror, see how you look. Let's proceed. Okay. Why are so many how do we prepare? How do we prepare for a great seminar? Number 1, know the type of talk you want to conduct to the audience, the target audience, what you're going to say, what you're not going to say. Second, have knowledge of your audience. You want to know the background. Who am I speaking to? Biologists, physicists, chemists? All right. And you want to know also the expectations. When you walked into this room today, most of you, if not all of you, knew 100% what today's talk was going to be about. Time allowed for the talk. 30 minutes means 30 minutes. So many times in scientific talks and in all talks, we'll say you have 30 minutes. And I remember speaking to an individual 2 or 3 years ago, and they said, I have 80 slides. I said, 80 slides? He said, oh, they're all data slides. They're going to go very quick. I said, all you have is 30 minutes. Nah, Ted, I got it. So an hour and 10 minutes later, he was completed. And needless to say, that backs up everyone. Too many slides, no good. General rule, 1 minute per slide. Data slides, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And they call this in the educational world TOT, time on task. You have to plan accordingly. your intro, data, conclusion, summary. Okay, and I like to categorize this, and several of you who've been with me now for quite some time, I categorize this personally as the 5 Ps. And this is a very good way to look at any task in life if you'd like to be successful. Proper planning prevents poor performance. You have to put the time in, period. If you don't, it's probably the results are not going to be what you desired. I believe we're on part 2. Okay. About the talk about your methods, your approach, how you obtain this knowledge, the steps you took. You'd like to submit graphs, results, charts, and overall your analysis. Also your summary. You have to say personally, this is what I believe. In 5 years, I submit this research will be beneficial. Cause, benefit, action statements. Finally, you have to have continuity, and your slides should flow smoothly. They should not be in disarray. Okay. One needs to have effective transitions. One slide should lead into another. You have to practice and review. Use friends or family in order to get feedback. All right? Martin Luther King, before his speeches, when he was a young man, he used to look in the mirror, and he would look at his facial expressions, his gestures, and needless to say, he was one of the most dynamic speakers in world history. So looking at yourself is good. I always suggest to have a friend or family videotape you. And I remember in college the professor used to do that, and the first time I saw myself speak, I was horrified. What I was saying, how I looked, and it's a good technique. And friends and family are good people to assist you. Also, you never want to memorize your speech top to bottom. Why? It's never going to sound natural. Never. Know the facts, but not the words. And again, your slides should give away the story. You should just be explaining them. Relative to slide preparation, we're going to move fast. These are general rules. They're not written in stone. 3 to 7 bullets per slide, 1 slide per minute. Time you want to expand on data, maybe 2 to 3 minutes per slide. Just the critical aspects of your work, same color patterns. You don't want to get too flashy, pink, yellow, orange, red. People in the back will get dizzy. You just want to have simple colors. Finally, large fonts so everyone can see. When many people are first working on their PowerPoints, they only use 10 to 11 font. You want to utilize the whole screen so people in the back of the room can see it. They're not squinting. And double and triple check everything with the spelling, with the data. This is not the time to make an error in procedure. You'd rather do that in the comfort of your own home. Designing the slides, needless to say, don't clutter them. Avoid sentences, use animations and sounds sparingly but effectively. Select what data to present, colors that are vivid, large tables. Now just a brief example of X and Y axes in variables. So right here you see temperature by month, and needless to say, you just want to clearly label that so we don't have mysteries in the back of the audience. Okay. Here we go. Preparing data. Many of you are aware that PowerPoint was designed for business, not for science. Many of the scientists I spoke to here over the past several years have indicated to use Origin or Igor. There are data processing programs that many would say are very effective. Okay. Always introduce the graphs, Y and Z, explain what the graphs represent, and if needed, a scale bar on images. As you can see right here, a picture is very powerful. Art can illustrate a point. And you see right here, you always want to indicate, you want to cite work. And then you see the imagery here, and most importantly, cite the work. Scientists like to be credited for the work in their discoveries, a very important aspect in the community. Take-home messages for part one. 1, TOT, time on task, 30 minutes means 30 minutes. Second, you want to tailor your talk specifically to the audience. Third, explain your story and being animated while doing so. With your voice, your hands, your facial expressions, your body language, owning the space. All of that is animation. Fourth, you want to deliver the slides and diagrams. And 5, proofread, practice, and review. And finally, the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Moving on to part 2, actually giving the presentation. Statistically speaking, famous New Yorker, and he said a very famous quote, more people, and this goes to public speaking, is people's #1 fear. And if you're unfamiliar with him, Jerry Seinfeld, a famous comedian who's been on TV for a very long time. And here's just a little chart regarding public speaking and how most feel. You see at the bottom, it's a little dull. It says public speaking, no way. Then you build up your confidence a little. Struggling through is the next step. Then, a competent speaker, crowd pleaser. You're memorable, influential, and finally, you're inspiring, you're inspirational. You want people, when they're leaving the room, to say, wow, that was a great talk. He or she is a great speaker. And this is the goal which most people who are practicing public speaking, that's what they like to reach. All of us start off here. Okay. Giving the presentation, part 2. 1, keep the talk simple and short and concise with time on task. Second, no paragraphs and slides. Many people make that error in judgment and or procedure. They just put type, type, type. And they'll sit here and read, and you see the audience just doze off. Very important, which we practice in the program a lot. And this is one of the biggest obstacles for all people whose English is their second language. Using intonations in your voice going up and down to express an idea, a certain segment. If you don't have intonations in your voice, it's very monotone. And if you're someone who's interested, or English is your second language, on YouTube, they have a tremendous amount of information, practice skills, where one can look at intonations and how to use them and execute them properly while delivering a speech. Show animation, convey the message, very powerful way, and ultimately be enthusiastic. You want to be proud of your research, your discoveries, and that has to come out with your projection. Making eye contact, as we indicated before, very important. Makes the people pay attention. Okay. Engage the audience if possible. If you noticed, right from the beginning, the talk almost now 20, 30 minutes ago, I'm trying to engage the audience, asking questions. Makes the audience come alive, pay attention more, and they feel that they're part of the presentation. You ask questions in order to capture their attention for the entire duration of the talk, not the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but for the totality of the talk. Never sit down. I had a professor in college who sat down the whole time. The only time he would move is when he would take a sip of coffee, and everyone in the class would watch him. It's like a statue. So some people do sit down, but please do not do that. Maintaining good body language is vital. Never read from notes. You'll lose the focus of the audience completely. You should guide the talk, not rush it. Practice yourself, have a good pace, time on task, it's a strike against you. And as we indicated, 30 minutes, if you go for 45, you're not showing respect for the other scientists who are looking to speak. And you need to be effective with the time you have. Speak to the audience. Do not scream. Face the audience. Not to the side. Your legs, your shoulders should be facing them the majority of the time. don't read. And time to time, one should stop to let the audience absorb some of the data. It's all right to take a break quickly for a sip of water instead of just going through without breaking. Laser pointer, use it effectively, not relentlessly. Okay, it's very distracting for the audience, and some almost use it as a toy. Don't keep the hands in the pockets. It's a clear sign of nervousness. And this brings us to our last and final worksheet for the day. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for circulating the copies. So at the top with gestures, we should see the man with his hand up holding several fingers. It says gestures. Gestures are your hand and arm movements. Speakers use them to emphasize points or to describe things. Use your gestures to help your listeners understand your speech better. And if anyone is familiar with ASL, American Sign Language, in American Sign Language, a lot of the communication is not only based on hand movements, but it's also based on facial gestures and expressions. So in the ASL community, gestures are one of the most important ways one communicates with another in the deaf community. If you look down to the box, it says examples of meaningful gestures. 1, demonstrate it. Use your hands to show how wide or tall an object is. If you're talking about the size, something in your research or an object, instead of just saying it was 3 feet tall, emphasize that with gestures. Then you're addressing to the 2 learning styles, both verbal and also visual. 2nd, show location. With your index finger, you can go east to west, or in your hands, it was a wide road, arm's length. It says, say yes to illustrate something, nodding your head up and down. That's saying yes. Or saying no if you're disappointed, shaking your head with an expression. Make words come alive. Act out the action you're talking about. If you're confused, shrugging your shoulders. Hold your index finger to describe a quiet situation, and there you have it. On the bottom, it says gestures add color and interest to your speech. In contrast, you should avoid movements that are unnecessary and or distracting. And then you see a couple bullet points there. 1, moving your hair off your face or out of your eyes. 2, pushing up your glasses on your nose, playing with a pen or a piece of jewelry, folding your arms, or the old famous rocking back and forward like you're on a boat. Okay, which I used to see a lot. Here we go. Use your hands to be animated through major segments, as we discussed. Utilizing gestures. Example, I'm going to talk about 5 factors today. 1st, the climate. 2nd, the parking lot. 3, the buildings. 4, the landscaping. And 5, the exit. Repeat questions so people in the back of the room can hear. If you notice when I asked questions in the back, I think for Wang, Takahito, I repeated their response. People next to them probably heard them very clear, but people in the front may not. So when you ask a question, when you get a response from the audience, it's always good just to repeat it. Number 1, it ensures everyone heard it, and it also provides clarity regarding the concept. Always attempt to be yourself. And it's very hard in this situation, as they say, to be calm, cool, and collective. The day of the presentation, one may want to change something about yourself, maybe your style, your clothing, haircut, and or appearance. Okay, and as we say, an idiom we did the other day, to jazz it up. You need to control the 6 human emotions. And they're very hard to control, especially if you have a disruptive audience, if you're unsure of some of your materials, one asks a question you cannot answer. It's very hard to control these under pressure. And you could see, positive, happy, that's the one you want to display. The ones that you do not want to display are fear, sadness, if you're disgusted, surprised, or angry. And to give you a visual, this is what they look like. Okay? So you would like to display happiness on the left, smiling. Shows you're confident. You don't want to display this. Everyone coming in, oh, you're here? Or sadness, or wow, I'm giving a talk today? Oh, I didn't know that. It's my turn? Wow, oof, I got to get prepared. So even if that is the case, you want to try to hide that. So again, looking in the mirror, recording yourself while giving a speech. When you look at your facial expressions, you may be surprised. And you have to be both an actor and an animated person while presenting. And you see the different speeches, the confidence, the arms up, the sign of, he did a good job. Capture the people for the entire duration, bless you, of the delivery. Not just for the first 5 minutes, not for the end, from beginning to end. Next, the performance has to be memorable. Again, when people are leaving, they should say, that was a great talk. I learned a lot. I'm going to apply these in my next talk. That's what you want the audience to be saying. And again, active and an actor. Enthusiasm. As you could see, there's no sweat to public speaking. We have verbal, nonverbal, eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, postures, body language, pronunciation, pauses, projection, getting your point across, the props, the content, the delivery, the visuals, the title, setting the stage, the credentials, your opening. That's a make or break, usually the introduction. The opening, what to tell them, your personal story segment, the major points you want to get across, the example, the closing, and then the take-home message. So very easy. It's very complicated. It's very complicated. There's so many aspects to go through, okay? And step by step, practice makes perfect, as they say. And if you really take a minute to look at all these different concepts, there's many. If you are very uncomfortable with public speaking, anyone here at the laboratory can always call me, email me, and I'll be happy to work with everyone, either in class and on an individual basis. And as Christine was saying before, the ESOL program has been very successful here in helping many scientists, young researchers, postdocs, to be the best professional they can be. The results have been good. If anyone needs help, I'd be happy to help you. And then finally, I'd like to say thank you very much for having me speak here today. Thank you, Christine, and also Brookhaven Women in Science. I hope the talk was enlightening, and if anyone has questions, comments, I'd be happy to address it at the end of this talk. Thank you for your time. Do we have any questions prior to dismissal? Yes, sir.
Yes, the slides of the presentation need to be numbered because you need to have a number on the slides because the listener will ask you a question telling you, could you go back to slide 20? Or the computer asks you, hey, could you go back to slide 20? And you have no idea what the slide is.
Yes, yes.
You need to have always a number on the slide that you can go back.
Very good point. If you did not hear him having a number on the slides, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Ted, can you please go back to slide 15? I didn't understand that. Very good comment. Thank you very much. I will apply it and take it under advisement. Sir?
It's possible to share your
I'm sorry, could you say that again? Yes, yes, I will share it. It's going to actually most likely be uploaded on either the ASAP website, Student Association of Postdocs, or I'll have it directly on my website, the ESOL site, which you can just do the search engine on the BNL, and then I will upload this, and I try to do different ones. I'm sorry, say again? Great, and I was just brought to my attention, it will also be on the BWIS website as well. Okay, thank you. It's a very good comment. Does anyone else have questions, comments, or concerns? So in closing, I wish the summer students of 2015 the best of their luck in their research and their time here at Brookhaven Lab, and I appreciate everyone for coming. Thank you very much.